Hello and welcome to our channel. My name is Libby and I'm here to give you an introduction to Alberon and tell you a bit about the services that we provide. So Alberon was started around 17 years ago here in Oxford, primarily specialising in web application, SharePoint and bespoke software development, and Power BI reporting and analytics. More specifically, some of the services we offer include software development, web design and development, managed web hosting, and software and web support and training, and we actually have a number of really comprehensive training courses coming in the near future. And more recently, we've been expanding our SharePoint services, where we can help you with development, design and consultancy. Some of the SharePoint services we offer include helping with the planning, development and design of your site, migrating and updating your services, and providing ongoing support, including training. The reason we want to support more organisations with SharePoint is because it already comes as part of a Microsoft 365 subscription, so it makes it really accessible to those who are already using Microsoft. We also find that so many businesses don't really use SharePoint to its full potential, so we can really help organisations and individuals to maximise the benefits of the Microsoft suite of applications. SharePoint can also be used for more efficient collaboration, document management and control, and can also be customised to your organisation to handle any specific business processes that you require. We tend to find that people enjoy using SharePoint because of its built-in functionality and centralised administration, customisable nature, document management and collaboration features, and how easy it is to use. As I mentioned previously, it's also fully integrated with other Microsoft 365 apps, creating a more seamless and efficient user experience, which really empowers users to handle processes themselves instead of heavily relying on external support. We have a lot of happy clients, including various Oxford University colleges and charities in Oxfordshire, who found that their processes have become much more efficient since using SharePoint, and you can read more detailed testimonials on our website, which is linked in the description box below this video. Additionally, on our website we have some case studies which you might find useful to read. These case studies identify the challenges that organisations were facing, and they detail how Alberon were able to help them to create positive results that worked for everybody in their workforce. Some of the solutions we've delivered include establishing an easy-to-use intranet, reforming permissions and access structures, and providing consultation and training to company staff to help them become more confident with maintaining their sites. The results include the removal of any inconsistencies in their site structure, with far more professional setups and more appropriate systems for information sharing and access. So, why choose Alberon? Well, with almost 17 years of experience combined with the skill and expertise of our consultants and developers, we know best how to tailor solutions to your business needs. Additionally, we can provide business insights and analytics, as well as in-house technical support, so you can feel comfortable knowing that your organisation's technical needs are in safe hands. If you're interested in the services we offer or would like to know more, please drop us an email at hello@alberon.co.uk and we'll be happy to discuss any queries with you. All links will be in the description box below and we look forward to hearing from you. If you're interested in more, please subscribe to the channel.
Well, good morning, everyone. My name's James McDowell. I'm Senior SharePoint Consultant at Alberon. I'm going to be doing a very brief overview of permissions and access, which is one of the things that a lot of our clients are really keen to get right in SharePoint. This will be a brief overview, but as Libby said earlier, we are planning on introducing some more in-depth hands-on training where we can actually go into this in a lot more detail and show you lots of different ways how you can do this. So the first thing I want to say is planning. Planning is key to everything when you're rolling out Microsoft 365. It's not just a change in software or a change in technology, but it's also, it allows you to have a change in culture. The ethos behind 365 is openness and collaboration. And it also empowers teams to actually take responsibility and ownership of their own areas of the business, their own permissions and access, their own documents. So it kind of moves away from what was historically central sort of IT control. When you first create your SharePoint environment, you start using 365, there are options to bulk import people into permission groups, the same way you can bulk import documents. So if you've got a large number of employees, there are quick ways of being able to get people into the right places right at the start of the journey. But what I'm going to look at more specifically is how you do ongoing permissions and access once your SharePoint environment's set up. So the way permissions are controlled in 365 is through what's called 365 groups. When you create a group, and there's a number of ways you can do that, but I'll recommend my preference for doing that. A group actually has a number of resources assigned to it, which includes a SharePoint site, an associated Teams channel, a shared mailbox, Power BI workspace, planner area, lots of resources for that team. And when you add people into that group, either as a member or an owner, they gain access to all those resources. And that's kind of the default permission settings for SharePoint. Individual users. So once your groups are established, as I said, you've got all those resources assigned to a group. Best practice is to manage individual user membership of groups through the Microsoft Teams channel that's been created for you. As you can see on the screen, I've set up a little demo group there, and it's got me as an owner and then Libby and my colleague Tim as members. And basically you can add individual users or remove users in the Teams channel, and that will either grant them permission to that group's resources, including the SharePoint site, or alternatively it will remove them and remove that access. So it's very quick and simple to do. When you first add someone in, you can search them by name. It will add them in as a member by default, but you do have the option then to make them an owner. And this is the simplest way to manage individual users and get them into the right 365 groups or take them out of groups that they don't need to be in. It's also possible through the Teams channel to add people external to your organization. So if your company policy is that you're going to collaborate externally, which some companies do, and you'd like to invite people outside of your organization in, you can add them into the Teams channel using their email address, and they will appear in the list of members, but it'll have guest in brackets next to their name. So that way you quickly know who's inside your organization, who's outside your organization. You can set guest settings within the Teams channel. You can also customize guest settings in the SharePoint site as well. So they don't automatically get the same access as members. You can customize to have a bit more control, because obviously you're granting people from outside your organization to come in. So that is the simplest way to manage individual users in and out of 365 groups. And as I said, those permissions will reflect up into SharePoint. Now, if we come to SharePoint, it's recommended by Microsoft that you manage permissions in SharePoint at group level rather than individual users. If you try and start doing it at individual level, it becomes very messy very quickly. So as you can see from the screen there, when you first create your 365 group and the SharePoint site's created, it will have an owners group and a members group automatically assigned to that SharePoint site. So anybody that you add in the Teams channel as a member will go into the members group, and obviously anyone you add as an owner will go into the owners group. The owners have full control of all the resources assigned to that 365 group, and the members have edit access, as you can see from there. Now, if you want to grant anyone outside of that group and give them access to your SharePoint site on an edit basis or read only, you have a couple of options. As you can see at the bottom, there's a site visitors. Now, the difference between guests and visitors, some people get confused with that. Guests are people that are external to your organization. Visitors are people within your organization but aren't part of this 365 group, so don't automatically have permission to that SharePoint site. So if you wanted to, for example, if this was a finance SharePoint site and you wanted to grant the HR team access to it, Rather than adding them all individually, you can just add the HR members group in as a site visitor, and that will give that group read access to that SharePoint site, including the document libraries. If there's two teams that collaborate very closely together and they need more access, then you could add an additional group in as a site member, and it will sit alongside them and it will grant them edit access to the SharePoint site and all the resources in it, including the documents. So the two takeaways from that is individual users managed through the Microsoft Teams channel, and in SharePoint you manage at group level, and that keeps your permissions nice and concise and easy, and it's easy for site owners to manage. Now, as I said, people who have access to that SharePoint site, whether they're a visitor, member or owner, will automatically have access to all the document libraries within that SharePoint site. Now, document libraries are SharePoint's version of computer drives, basically, and a team can create as many document libraries as they need. As you can see from the permissions there, this is what site owners will be able to see in the back end of SharePoint when you go into library settings. So each document library, you can manage the permissions independently. By default, it will inherit from the SharePoint site permissions. So it'll have exactly the same. If you're an owner, you'll have full control. If you're a member, you'll have edit access. And if you're a visitor, you'll have read only. And that's set up by default. Now, if you don't want certain people to have access to some of your document libraries, maybe you're happy for the visitors to see your SharePoint site but not actually go into any of your files, there's actually an option to stop inheriting permissions, which will break the link between the permissions for the SharePoint site and the document library itself. And the screen would then look like this. You would get a warning dialog box just above your permissions, and in there you can go and actually check what unique permissions you've actually granted to people. So if you've given people, individuals or groups, access or removed access to certain documents or files, that will all be listed in there. So you've got the option then to grant additional permissions, so you can invite other people into that document library who aren't necessarily members of your group. And you've also got the option to check permissions, so you can search by individual user, group, or the actual file or folder itself and see who's got access to what. Now, quite usefully, permissions can get out of control, and some people panic about that. Over time, you may have shared and given access to a large range of people. If you need a reset and you want to actually restore some control, you've got the option there to delete unique permissions, and that will get rid of all the shared links and direct access that you've given to other people, and it will reset it back to the default, which is back to owners, members and visitors. So that's really handy to know, because some people do like to have a bit of a pause and get control back. So it is very easy in SharePoint library settings to take permissions back to the default. Now, individual files and folders, there's a couple of ways you can grant access to people that are outside of your group. First one, as you can see there, is sharing. So either within a document itself or in the document library, there'll be an icon next to your document or folder, which is an option to share. And when you select that, this dialog box will pop up, and it gives you a range of options on how you can actually share that document temporarily with an individual or group, or even external to your organization. So you can search for people by name or email, select what access they have. By default, it will be read only, as you can see from the little eye symbol to the right. You can change that to edit access, or you can even change it on some documents to review, so people can make suggestions on improvements, but not actually be able to edit it. It also gives you an option to type a little message to them if there's something you want them to check specifically. And then you can just click send, and that will send them a temporary link to that document. You've got a couple of options with Outlook as well, where you can send a link via email, or you can even add the document or folder as an attachment. And you can also copy the link and make that available somewhere else. For example, you could paste that as a button in your SharePoint site if it's a document that people need to get access to regularly and don't want to go trawling for it. You also get a review at the bottom of people that you've already shared access with. So that's a really quick way, but these are temporary links and they'll only have access as long as that link remains active. If you want to give people more permanent access, there's an option in settings next to your file or folder, which is called Manage Access. And this allows you to give people the same access to that file or folder that group members or owners have. So this is split into two bits. At the top, you've got the sharing links, which we covered on the previous slide. So you'll be able to see all the links that you've shared with people. And you've got the option there to stop sharing, which will kill all those links. So if anybody tried to click that link and you'd stop sharing it, they'd get a warning notification to say that link is no longer active. At the bottom, you can see direct access. Now, by default, it will show the owners, members, and visitors, because as I said at the start, anyone that's an owner or a member or visitor of that site will automatically have that associated permission to all the documents within the SharePoint site. Owners is listed twice, which is a bit annoying, but it's because they're not just SharePoint site owners, but they're also 365 group owners, which is why they're shown twice. Now, historically in legacy SharePoint products, it was possible for members to delete owners' access to certain documents. And obviously you can imagine how much chaos that could cause. So Microsoft have quite sensibly made it owners' permanent access. You can't remove them now, which actually gives it more assurance and stability. Members and visitors you can remove, or you can change their access from read-only to edit or vice versa. So you can lock documents down just to owners if you needed to. It also gives you the option there to do direct access. So anyone who's not an owner, member, or visitor outside of your group that you want to give direct access to a file or folder, you can just click the plus sign, search for them by name or email, and add them in and select what type of permission they have, whether it's edit or read only. And rather than using a temporary link like we saw on the previous screen with sharing, they will actually be able to navigate to that file or folder into your SharePoint site, and they'll access it the same way that group members and owners will. If you wanted to remove them, it's very simple. You just click stop sharing and that will kill their access to that file or folder. So it's very easy for site owners to review who's got access to what and actually remove them. If you've got a huge number of documents and files in your site and you don't have the time or energy to go through them individually and review access, you can manage access in bulk in the library settings that we saw previously for the document library. So that was a very, very brief overview. Obviously, this is a lot more in-depth subject. There's lots of other ways that you can manage permissions and access through Azure or SharePoint Admin Center, but that is the ways I've shown you there are considered best practice, and it's the easiest way for team members and owners to actually control who sees what. But if you want any more information on this, or you're interested in any follow-up training, then please contact us with the details there. And thank you for your attention.